Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Fights Tonight podcast. I am Travis Polhamus. I'm here with my co-host, Luis Romero.
How you doing, Travis?
Doing pretty good, brother. What's the first fight we're going to break down today?
So first we are going to break down Canelo Alvarez versus Demetri Bidwell.
Okay. Do you have a quick prediction on this before I go in depth a little?
I don't watch as much boxing as you, so I think it would be best if you broke it down, who you think will win and how you think this fight will play out.
Okay. Well, as long as we're talking boxing, I would like to see Bivol win just to see him get the notoriety and the payday, but this being Cinco de Mayo weekend and Canelo being the big money fighter, I think I see him taking this one. Bivol is experienced as an amateur and has a decent pro record and has been champ and defended it a decent amount of times. The thing is Canelo's experience and the way he gets inside on people should be the difference. The only other time Canelo's fought at light heavyweight, which is 175, was against Kovalev, who was a good boxer and had a good stiff jab, but was definitely on the later part of his career and definitely on the decline, whereas Bivol hasn't looked super impressive in his last couple of fights, but is a little more young and spry for sure than Kovalev was, though isn't quite as famous as Kovalev was, and certainly hasn't been in the big fights the way Kovalev has. So I think he's going to come out, he's mainly going to stick it to his straight punches. He's got a decent kind of snappy left hook. I think Canelo will take him a little time to be able to get around the straight punches of Bivol and kind of get his timing and stuff. But then I see Canelo getting inside and starting to outpoint him. And with it being Cinco de Mayo weekend and Canelo being the big money fighter, the judges are definitely going to be on his side. So if Bivol can't absolutely dominate the fight or start really hurting Canelo or dropping him, the judges are going to give it to Canelo, and there's going to be nothing to keep Canelo off of him. So I see Canelo winning it. Perhaps a knockout, TKO in the last couple rounds, but most likely I see this one going to decision, kind of like his first couple at 168 did, just because of the size and the fact that Canelo doesn't force things. Aside from the boxing, what else do we have coming up this weekend, Lewis?
We have UFC 274.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And I know that card opens up with one of my old favorites, which is Mauricio Shogun Rua versus Ovince St. Preux, which is a rematch 8 years in the making, where unfortunately one of my favorites, Shogun, got finished early in the first round. Shogun definitely, his last couple of fights, which he's been saying for a while now, I think he's the more experienced fighter and maybe even better. But St. Preux is still younger, hits really hard, is most certainly bigger, and having the southpaw advantage too should make a difference. So as much as I'd love to see Shogun win, I think it's definitely Ovince St. Preux that should be the favorite in this fight. But nothing I'd love more than a underdog victory for Shogun. The second fight on the card, Joe Lauzon versus Donald Cerrone. What are your thoughts, and what do you see on that one, Lewis?
So Joe Lauzon, I don't think he has a very good gas tank on him compared to Cowboy Cerrone. Cowboy, he's a slow starter, but I feel like Lauzon, he sticks to his straights too much compared to Cowboy. He's able to throw more combination, more combos, and I feel like if he can get it to the ground, I feel like it might play out in his favor. But at the same time, Joe, he likes to force that takedown.
Yeah, that could be dangerous against a good Muay Thai striker like Cowboy.
Right. And Cowboy, he kind of has a straight-up stance. He stands a little bit taller, so it might be easy for Joe to get those takedowns. It might not. But, for this one, I feel like Cowboy, he has the advantage. I feel like he might be the one that wins by a split decision. If anything, he might be able to finish it by TKO. But that's how I see that one going. How about you? How do you see that one going?
I think you're probably right on that. There's a good call with Cowboy being weak in the very early beginning parts of the fight. The thing is that Lauzon's not... He's gotten some knockouts before against Jens Pulver way back in the day when he was young, but I just don't see him being explosive enough or have anything tricky enough to be able to take Cowboy out early. And then as the fight unfolds... I feel like Cowboy can hang with Lauzon on the ground perhaps a little better than Lauzon could hang with Cowboy striking. So I think you're right. I think either Cowboy wins a decision, perhaps a close one, or Lauzon kind of gassed himself out, perhaps trying to take advantage of Cowboy's weakness in the early rounds, and then Cowboy finished him off with some of those clean combos you were talking about.
You know, and I feel like Joe, he doesn't have really good head movement, so I feel like he's going to be really easy to hit.
Yeah, and it's been a little while since he's been in the ring, too, so he should feel that ring rust a little bit. Cowboy's, had a tough run as of late, but he's been fighting a much higher level of competition.
Oh, definitely, even though Joe's been facing lower competition, like when he fought against Chris, I don't know how to say this last name, I'm pretty
Grutzmacher.
Grutzmacher, he did pretty good in the first round, but in the second round, you could definitely tell he was gassed. He didn't do much to defend. He was trying to control the wrist a little bit. When it went to the tie clinch, Chris was able to land some pretty good knees. But that one went to stoppage, and I feel like Cowboy, I feel like he'll be able to finish it.
Yeah, as much as I have a soft spot for anybody who them and their brother are both fighting in the UFC, I got to think Cowboy takes this one too. After that will be the featured event on the card before the two title fights, which will be Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Yes. What are your thoughts on that, Lou?
Ooh, all right. So Michael, he's only been in the UFC recently. He's had 3 fights. I think one was against Dan Hooker. The second one was against... who was the second one against? Hold on, give me 1 second,
Oliveira.
Travis. Was it against Oliveira? Okay, all right, yeah. That one...
and then Gaichi after.
Was it Gaichi?
He fought Hooker, then Oliveira, then Gaichi.
You're right, yeah. So, Michael, he's pretty explosive. Tony, he's tough. I feel like they're both tough. When Michael fought against Justin, I didn't think he'd be able to hang as well as he did, but that was an absolute war. Won all 3 rounds. And Tony, when he fought Justin, that went to the 3rd round too, but that was a stoppage at the end. So it's kind of hard to say in this one, if I were to guess, Tony in his interview, he was pointing out Michael Chandler's ankle, and I feel like that's what he's going to be attacking this time. He's not the best low leg kicker, so I don't really see him doing much damage compared to Justin when Michael and Justin fought.
True.
But I'd have to say this fight is probably going to go the distance, and I feel like Michael's going to outscore Tony. I feel like he has more output, but that's how I think that one's going to play out. What about you, Travis? How do you think that one's going to go?
Well, it's a tricky one. You're definitely dead on with Chandler being more explosive, and the only thing that worries me about Tony wanting to perhaps wrestle Chandler a little bit is that Chandler's quite a good wrestler himself, and I've seen him, especially back when he was in Bellator, he'd gas himself out being really explosive on the strikes.
Right.
And then he was really good, even, really heavy, solid guys like Benson Henderson, where he'd be able to take him down and maybe not do much, maybe not advance his position or get much ground and pound off. But Chandler's really good at taking guys down and just kind of holding them down and kind of biding his time, and especially with it being a 3-round fight. I think those explosive guys, they have a hard time with the 5-round fights. But I will say, a 3-round fight, it's hard for me to not see Chandler taking a couple of those rounds. The one thing I will say is if Tony is in a little bit better form, his last couple of fights, Gaichi and then Oliveira and then Beneil Dariush, he seemed for sure a step behind and a little slower and getting a little bit older.
Right.
But I feel like Chandler could win most of this fight, and Tony's so tough that he could take those shots, and then one of those times that Chandler lunges in with something, if he catches a knee or catches one of those spinning elbows, it could be a bit of a problem on the ground. I think Tony he's pretty adept at dealing with the strong wrestler type like he showed in his Kevin Lee fight.
Right.
It's just I could definitely see Chandler controlling him, but could Tony pull some slick Eddie Bravo 10th Planet stuff, or maybe cut him up with some elbows or something? I think perhaps Chandler doesn't come out of this fight as unscathed as he has some of his other ones, but I definitely think it's Chandler's fight to lose, and Chandler should, if nothing else, be up on the scorecards if he can't finish Tony, who's proven to be a real tough guy to put away.
Right.
I think it could be an exciting one. I feel like this one, the way it plays out, is really going to depend on what Tony Ferguson shows up. If he shows up like he did in his last couple fights, I think it's going to be kind of hard to watch, kind of like the Gaichi fight was.
Right.
The thing is the other guys that beat him, Oliveira and Beneil Dariush, and even the way that Gaethje fought in his fight was a real technical wait for him to come in and crack him with big hooks and leg kicks and stuff, where that's not Chandler's style. Chandler really rushes you and is really aggressive and stuff, and so I'm hoping that'll make this, between that and maybe Ferguson coming in a little bit better of a spot, will make it a little bit more exciting and a little bit less one-sided. If that wraps up all of the normal fights on the card that we're going to talk about, then that brings us into the title fights, the first of which will be another rematch on the main card that's quite a few years in the making, which is between Thug Rose Namajunas and Carla the Cookie Monster Esparza, which was the title fight off of the Ultimate Fighter that crowned the inaugural strawweight champion in the UFC at 115, which Carla Esparza won the first time
by rear naked choke.
But this, they're much different fighters now. It's been a long time. What are your thoughts, and how do you see this one playing out, Lou?
I think this one's going to be a little more boring compared to the first fight. I feel like Carla, she'd take more chances back in the day compared to now. Now she doesn't really throw strikes. She's more of a wrestler. She was always has been a wrestler. And Rose, back in the day too, she would stand her ground a little bit more. I feel like nowadays she's kind of pouncing around in the ring, light on her feet, which is good. But I feel like it's going to be a completely different fight. Carla, she likes to force those takedowns. I don't really see her hitting Rose with any knockdown punches. And Rose, I feel like she's gonna, do what she usually does: stay light on her feet, prance around the ring, kind of control the distance. She's gonna piece up Carla, and I feel like that's how it's gonna go. I feel like it's gonna go to the third round or fifth round to the split decision. I think Rose is gonna take this one. But in Carla's previous fights, let's see who she fought. I have this over here. 1 second. You tell me what you think.
Well, I think that. I think Namajunas is by far a much more different fighter now than she was the first time, whereas Esparza is basically fights the same way, a little more skill, a little more experience. The thing I'm thinking is that part of what was getting Rose taken down a lot the first fight was that she was throwing a lot of taekwondo, two-touch kicks, a lot of flying kicks that was making it easy for Esparza, being the shorter fighter, to duck under and take her down.
Right.
And so I feel like Esparza's going to have to work a little bit more for the takedowns. The only thing is that Rose's attack now is so boxing-based that I feel like it could be perhaps almost as easy for Esparza to come underneath one of those straights and shoot a takedown. And as you saw in the Andrade fight, where Rose lost her belt initially, it was off a slam.
Yeah.
That's not quite the type of wrestler Esparza is. She's definitely more of a traditional wrestler, not quite looking to slam you the way that Andrade is.
Right.
However, I think some knees or some uppercuts coming up the middle could definitely help make Carla Esparza hesitate a little bit. Carla Esparza's been on a bit of a decent run.
Right.
The thing about Rose is her rematches always seem to go wildly different. She knocks out Joanna Jędrzejczyk the first time. Second time it goes all 5 rounds. She knocks out Zhang Weili the first time. The second time it goes all 5 rounds. First time she fights Andrade, she gets slammed on her head. The second time she barely outpoints her in a split decision. Right. So if the past is the prologue, then she should do better in this fight and win. Whenever she loses the first fight to somebody, she seems to do better in the second one. And Esparza is, though better and more experienced, is so similar to what she's fought before, whereas I feel like Esparza is really going to feel like she's in there with a different fighter with a lot better footwork and a lot more emphasis on the straight punches and not taking some of the crazy chances with some of the cool kicks that she was kind of thrown before and stuff. And Rose is decent on the ground, but I think Carla, being a wrestler, is kind of used to kind of like Khabib, where it's like if you're going to be that wrestler and try to focus on your top game, a lot of your training is going to be kind of shrugging off submission attempts from people on the bottom that are usually a little bit longer and maybe a little have a little bit wider of an arsenal.
Yeah.
But there can be something to be said for keeping your game simple and sticking with your bread and butter, kind of similar to how Khabib would do. So.
Right.
On this one, I think you might have called it. Where I don't really see a finish happening on this one. I see a decision. It's just going to depend on what Carla Esparza is willing to do for the takedown, and once Rose realizes that she can't get a submission unless she can, how easily she's going to be able to get up off the bottom. And if she does have one of the early rounds where she does get taken down and held down, hopefully she can fend off that takedown for a little bit longer. And so I see Rose probably picking up a decision, maybe a late TKO or something. Do you have any final thoughts on that fight, Lewis?
No, you pretty much called it, Travis. Carla in her last fights, like you said, she's a wrestler. Her last fight she won via TKO. She ended up getting the topside crucifix against Jan, and Rose in her previous fights too, she's been pretty easy to take down. So I think it might be. I'm pretty sure Carla's going to be able to take Rose down. If Janeway Lee was able to take her down with, not being a wrestler but being a striker, I don't think Carla's going to have a problem. But that's a tough fight for me.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. It's one of those weird ones where I don't think anybody doubts that Rose wins any striking exchange that happens,
right,
and that Carla probably will be able to get Rose to the ground without too much trouble. It's just who can keep the fight where they're at their best the longest. It sounds like we're leaning towards Rose, but definitely not counting out Esparza by any means.
Yep.
And that is going to bring us to our main event of the evening for the lightweight belt, which is
Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje.
Ooh, tell me what you're seeing on this one, Lewis.
All right, on this one, it's hard to say. Justin, he has strong punches. He has a really good lead hook. He has a really good rear uppercut, and he has a really good overhand. And Charles, I want to say he has a lot of powerful punches. He has dropped Michael Chandler and some other top prospects in the past, but in this fight, I can see Gaethje doing his leg kicks, of course, maybe hurting Charles. I feel like if Charles can get up to the fence, I feel like he'll be able to take down Gaethje and maybe possibly get a submission. When Gaethje fought against Khabib, he was scared and he fought from a distance.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how this fight's going to play out. I'm not sure if he's going to stand closer or if he's going to fight from a distance. I feel like if he fights from a distance and can stay away from the cage, I feel like he might be able to land a power shot on Charles. But if that don't happen and he gets up against the cage, I can see Charles doing some damage, taking the back maybe. And that's what I think about this fight. I feel like I can't call this one either, I'm hoping Charles wins, but I really can't call this one.
So it's a true 50-50 fight for you then?
It is. It really is, yes. Charles is my favorite, but it's gonna be a tough one. Charles has fought against explosive fighters in the past, like Michael Chandler, and he's done well. But I don't know. He had this big weight cut that he missed too, just by half a pound, and I wonder how much that's going to affect him in this fight.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's worrying me as well. I was definitely leaning towards Oliveira, and this is his first fight at the title level where he's been the betting favorite. I'm curious to see tomorrow in the early afternoon how much the odds have changed, if a lot of people are going to lay some late money on Justin Gaethje because of the weight cut miss.
Right.
It's unfortunate because if Oliveira wins as the odds makers thought he was going to do, then there won't be a lightweight champion until the next lightweight title fight where hopefully everybody will make weight. But I feel like it's kind of like you said, where it's Gaethje's hard leg kicks, that overhand, that left hook, and that uppercut, where it's kind of a live by the sword, die by the sword thing, where him slipping a punch and throwing that heavy left hook or coming over a jab with an overhand could be the thing that drops Oliveira and gets him the finish. However, trying to blast those leg kicks and hard punches at a longer guy
leaves him open.
Exactly, it leaves him open, and all it's going to take is one time for Oliveira to pull back or just barely be out of range.
Yep.
And put it right straight over that left hook, or Gaethje to be out of position from trying to throw a leg kick as hard as he can and catching Oliveira's left hook that he dropped Chandler with.
Yep.
And I feel like Oliveira's last couple fights against Poirier and Chandler, both short, squat, heavy punchers, that are, not bad on the ground, but it's definitely not their forte. I feel like has prepared him for this a little bit better than Gaethje, where Gaethje, even fighting Khabib and Chandler and those guys, doesn't quite prepare you for the style that Oliveira has. I think if it hits the ground, it's not going to be long before Oliveira locks onto something. The question is, does it go to the ground by Oliveira's choice or because Oliveira got dropped? Like you say, that weight cut is going to be important because, who knows how tough of a weight cut he had this time. And
Right.
in his 2 title fights where he won the belt against Chandler and then where he defended against Poirier, he got dropped both times.
Yeah.
And how hydrated you are and how tough a weight cut you had can play a big part in how quick you can recover from a heavy shot like that. The cool thing is, if he does get dropped, he's kind of got a Fabricio Verdum thing where he's pretty comfortable with immediately just going to his back rather than trying to trade on wobbly legs, because he knows he's so dangerous on the ground that it'll kind of give his opponents pause. They won't just jump into his guard to try to throw ground and pound. So unless he's completely drawn out from that weight cut, I'm leaning towards him, but it's definitely a 55-45 type thing where, I definitely don't think he makes it out of this fight unscathed. And the same with Gaethje, where if Gaethje wins this, I don't think he does it with a clear face and without perhaps having to fend off a submission attempt or two. I think this one, it's a weird one too. It's not only that it's hard to lean one way or the other, but it's hard to say. This is one you could see a quick finish happening in the first round,
Yeah.
or you could see this being kind of a war that goes back and forth for 5 rounds, which makes it an exciting fight, makes it a hard one to call. I think that's why the betting lines weren't, like they are for the Canelo fight, where one guy's obviously a heavy favorite. I'm going to lean Oliveira, but by no means I'm ruling Justin Gaethje out. I think, Oliveira, even if he can't finish him, is going to have to really hurt him a couple times. The other thing I think is that Oliveira has a style that he kind of capitalizes on other people's mistakes, to where I see him if he's still around being in decent shape for the 4th or 5th round. The thing about the way that Gaethje fights is every main event that I've seen him in, he either finishes the guy super early or he starts not, 3rd round Gaethje is definitely not 1st round Gaethje. You can't put 100% power into leg kicks and these big punches, and
Right.
you can't eat the kind of shots he eats coming forward and 15 minutes later with a top 5 fighter still be the same guy. And so I think the later it goes, kind of like Oliveira's other fights, he gets dropped early and he gets a submission late. I think if Gaethje's going to win, it's going to have to be early. He's going to have to catch Oliveira with a good punch, midway point into the 3rd round at the latest. I think, if it starts getting into the 3rd round, I think laying some late money on Oliveira, assuming he's looking his normal self after the weight cut, would be a good idea. I think if Gaethje can't get it done in those first 10 to 12 minutes, roughly, it's probably Oliveira's fight to win, unless Gaethje's done so much that he's way up on the scorecards with a couple of 10-8 rounds. So I'm going to lean Oliveira, but I think out of all the fights we've broken down, this one's probably the most even and could really go either way.
I have to agree with you on that. And I'm going to change my mind from going to 50-50. I'm going to have to agree with you on the 45-55.
Yeah.
I feel like, Charles, he's really good again, the one-hand clinch. And he hurt Chandler with his rear uppercut. I feel like if he can do that with Gaethje, I feel like he might have a better chance. And I forget what I was going to say, Travis.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was surprised at the face-offs was I was expecting Oliveira to be quite a bit taller than him. And really their height was pretty close compared to what I was thinking. The thing is a lot of Gaethje's attacks are round attacks. It's round kicks to the legs, it's hooks, it's uppercuts, it's overhands. For a guy that's short, he's not a guy that has great long attacks. And that's the thing I think that's going to accentuate the reach that Oliveira has. He doesn't have a huge height advantage, but he definitely has one in reach. And the fact that a lot of his punches are straight, A lot of his kicks are straight. A lot of his knees are straight. Even that
Right.
left hook he throws is a pretty wide left hook that can catch you from a ways away. That's how he caught Chandler. Chandler, they didn't trade left hooks. Chandler threw his left hook and was already exiting the pocket trying to get his distance back, and Oliveira caught him on the way out. And so I feel like, Gaethje's going to have to get inside that. The cool thing about MMA compared to boxing is when you get inside on a long guy in boxing, there's not a whole lot he can do aside from try to catch you with a hook or an uppercut. When it's MMA, you get inside of them, that long guy, you've immediately got to deal with his knees and his elbows.
Yeah, that's what happened to Dustin Poirier when Charles fought him. He threw out those flying knees. With Justin being the guy that uses his head movement a lot, he might get caught with the flying knee.
Yeah, and I've got to say, for Gaethje being a good defensive wrestler, and you saw that in him defending Chandler's takedowns, you did see when he's being pressured, Khabib being able to take him down without too much trouble. And obviously Oliveira isn't the wrestler that Khabib is, but I think Oliveira is going to surprise people and is going to press forward in this fight. I don't think he's going to be backing up and looking for stuff. And I think once Gaethje hits him a couple times and sees that he's still there, or sees that he's going to get dropped and get back up, it could play out in a similar fashion to that Khabib fight, just with a little bit better striking, a little bit better jiu-jitsu, and maybe not quite as dominant of the wrestling. And Oliveira also doesn't have the pace and the pressure that Khabib has, but when you swing the way Gaethje does, it's not going to take a lot to wear him out. That, and I think Oliveira is kind of comfortable with this spot where he's fighting a dude that's got heavy hands, that's looking to come take the belt from him. He's been in that exact spot the last couple times and faced adversity and came back, whereas Gaethje, the only other time he's fought for the belt, he got pressured. He went out there real quick, tried to land some heavy stuff, and when that didn't work, he started backing up and kind of gassing out. And so that's the only thing that makes me lean Oliveira. I'd be leaning heavier on Oliveira if it wasn't for the weight cut, but some time to rehydrate, and 24 hours can, like they say, what a difference a day makes. So we'll see. Hopefully, he looks himself so that we see the best version of each guy fighting each other, because I really think Gaethje's got such a good training camp and a coach that we'll see a good version of Gaethje. I'm just curious, how this recent development is going to affect Oliveira on this. So that's the way I see it. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him. I think all of them, even including the fight with Canelo, which is perhaps the most one-sided of them, I think all of them will be exciting. And what more could you want for the Cinco de Mayo weekend than some good fights?
Right. So to close this out, Travis, on those 5 picks, who you got? Who are you betting on?
Ooh. If I was going to do a parlay, I would have the Canelo fight. If you want to play it really safe, having Canelo win. If you want to perhaps take a little bit more of a risk and make money, have it going past 10 and a half, whatever your betting site allows, just because of Bivol's youth and his size, and Canelo not taking chances. I would have Oliveira winning, although that one could definitely set off because of how even it is, like we said. I think Rose on a parlay, or if you're not feeling as confident, the fight going past, say, 2.5, because I don't see either one of them really putting the other one away that quickly. I would say Chandler against Tony would be a safe bet, and then Donald Cerrone. And with those 5 on a parlay, that should be enough to turn a couple bucks into some beer money for your Sunday. What about you, Lewis?
Well, I want to point out for all our fight fans out there, Mr. Travis Polhamus was right on his picks last week, all 3 of them.
Yes, sir.
So I ain't counting his picks out, but for me, I would have to say, I'm going to go on money lines here. I'm going to have to say Canelo. I'm going to have to say Donald, Cerrone. I'm going to have to go Michael Chandler. I'm going to have to go Rose Namajunas. And, of course, I have to go Charles Oliveira. those are my 5 picks.
Ooh, I think that all goes exactly like that. What's going to be tough is when the first couple happen, deciding whether you let the money ride on that UFC main event
Right.
or whether you get scared and pulled out, because I most certainly would be pulling it out. The other thing is I haven't checked exactly how the times line up, but I'm going to assume it's like last week where boxing has realized how big the UFC has gotten and that they don't want to compete. Oddly enough, if you remember the only other time Canelo fought at 175 against Kovalev was the same night as Diaz-Masvidal. And they had Kovalev and Canelo wait in their dressing rooms for almost an extra hour while the Diaz and Masvidal fight ended because they didn't want to compete and didn't want it to affect their pay-per-view buys. So hopefully, for all the fans of both sports out there, you'll be able to see the conclusion of the UFC main event, and then we'll be able to switch over to the boxing card if you're ordering it. That way you won't have to miss anything, which is kind of tough because Canelo's the one I'm the most sure of, and the last fight in the UFC card is one I'm the least sure of. But I think either way, going with Mir Lewis's parlay there would be your best chance of turning a little bit of money into enough to enjoy your Sunday in style.
Nice. And with that being said, I think we're coming to a close, right, Travis?
I believe that's it, brother.
All right. Well, for all you fight fans out there that like our podcast, make sure to give us a like and subscribe. And thanks for joining me and Mr. Travis Polhamus on the fights tonight.